Welcome, my ghouls and goblins. Welcome to By Book and Bone. I hope you all had a spookiful Halloween, or Samhain, or just a great October if you don't celebrate. My decorations are all still up, and they will remain so until I'm emotionally ready for Christmas. What do you think of the new YouTube handles? I'm a little confused about their function, seeing as we all have channel names. As you might suspect though, I did get one. My handle is By Book and Bone, nice and straightforward. It's been a long time coming, a really long 5 months coming, but I'm finally going to talk about Manhunt by Gretchen Felker-Martin. Rightly or wrongly, Manhunt has been a controversial book, and reviewing it without discussing that controversy would be doing disservice both to the book's impact on media awareness and the media's impact on how the book itself is perceived. I'm only going to do kind of like a light discussion of it, but hopefully I'll be able to, in the future, talk more about how the media impacts how books are viewed by the public and how sometimes it's incredibly dishonest. Thus, after I read the blurb, I will discuss my personal experience and review Manhunt, but then I will discuss the controversy. Timestamps in the description as usual. Beth and Fran spend their days travelling the ravaged New England coast, hunting feral men and harvesting their organs in a gruesome effort to ensure that they'll never face the same fate. Robbie lives by his gun and one hard-earned motto: other people aren't safe. After a brutal accident entwines the three of them, this found family of survivors must navigate murderous turfs, a psychopathic billionaire bunker brat, and awkward relationship dynamics, all while outrunning packs of feral men and their own demons. Manhunt is a timely, powerful response to every gender-based apocalypse story that failed to consider the existence of transgender and non-binary people from a new, powerful voice in horror. Right off the bat, I'll tell you that I gave Manhunt 3 stars. There's a lot that I really liked, but there's a lot of areas that I can only describe as wretched. Manhunt is a grindhouse horror, which I've never read before. I had only watched grindhouse horror movies with friends, where we usually make fun of how sexist they were. So going in, I did expect Manhunt to be both an homage and a twist on that. It was definitely an homage, and the violence was through a different lens. But honestly, I'm not sure Felker-Martin had the writing chops to pull off the extreme violence towards women without coming off as misogynistic. Now, having said that, I don't personally find the book itself misogynistic, but I definitely see why other readers did. To me, it seemed pretty clear that the violence towards women, trans or otherwise, was approached with disgust. It was meant to be horrific and upsetting. However, I do think parts of it were gratuitous, and I'm not really a big fan of that. There absolutely did not have to be as many scenes of really gruesome violence to tell the story or to set the stage that Felker-Martin wanted to. In fact, the greatest weakness of Manhunt, in my opinion, is that the author tries to do too much in a short space. A lot of the issues that I found were due to this massive amount of story being kind of almost squashed into this relatively short book, in my opinion. If this had been a duology or trilogy with the same number of violent scenes spread out through between more story building and definitely more character development, I think I would have rated it much higher and would have enjoyed it a lot more. I also want to talk a bit about how the blurb mentions non-binary people, but Manhunt doesn't actually mention non-binary by name from what I remember, and there's just one single presumed non-binary person in the book. They go by they, them pronouns, and they're treated so poorly by both characters and the story that it made me feel a little queasy compared to the other groups that had several characters and stories and had more complex characters. I don't think that's inherently an issue for the author. It was just the blurb, which is done by somebody else, kind of gave the wrong impression there. There's also only one trans man, Robbie, who's largely ignored. Like, he is there, but there's not really much to him. You could read this as an allegory for how trans men are treated in media culture, basically invisible. But if I'm honest, this feels more of the same. There are quite a few trans women who survived the T-Rex virus, so why wouldn't there be more AFAB non-binary people or trans men who might have gone off T or who had socially transitioned prior to the virus outbreak? Seen it because there is several trans women, both like the main characters and mentioned. There seems to be quite a lot of trans women, but there's only one mentioned trans man, and I just found that a bit confusing. I really did like the premise itself and the bones of the story, particularly the Bunker Brat section and Indy. Oh, I love Indy. I just wish there had been more about the story and less about the violence. The characters and their relationships were pretty shallow by the end, which made me sad because there's one romantic relationship that I should have adored, but because we don't get enough downtime with them interacting before the relationship, you don't see it coming and it kind of feels almost like set design. I don't know how to make it, like when there's like a scene trying to give it depth painted onto wood at the back of a stage. That's kind of what it felt like, which sucked because, as I said, I would have loved that relationship. Fran and Beth's tumultuous relationship is really well done. Like their friendship and how they go is probably the most well done of the novel. And man, I really was ready to hate Fran by the end. It was so realistic. I just, there is like, as I've been kind of down on it, but I did give the novel 3 stars. It does deserve those 3 stars in my opinion. There's so much that is really well done. Martin did a really good job. She did really well at the whole dystopian aspect, I think. Because dystopian is meant to either shine a light on kind of a crappy part of society that's already there, or it can be kind of almost a warning of where we're going. And I think that Manhunt is a very good dystopian in that aspect. Like the relationships and trials that transgender people, particularly trans women, have to go through, the awful things they hear, how they feel about themselves. It's all just so raw and fantastically done, which is, I think, why I'm kind of a little bit hard on the book in the beginning, because I do think that it could have been brilliant, but I just feel a bit let down by some of the things, and I do think that a lot of the violence might be gratuitous, which is normal for a grindhouse horror, but uh, well, I wasn't. Maybe I just don't like reading grindhouse horror compared to watching it, where you can see when stuff is completely overdone, or you can see the tone it's meant to be. Whereas reading, sometimes you can miss that. It was so realistic. I definitely recommend that if you do want to read Manhunt, make sure you read every trigger warning going, and make sure you already like gory horror. Because if you want to read something to understand the trans experience, or because you're transgender yourself, it might be really triggering and upsetting. Another YouTuber, Kevi, she mentioned in her review about the trigger warnings needed and how traumatizing this book might be for trans individuals. And I would just, like I said, in that I would mention them and their particular warning, but I would also add on, like, I'm a cis woman, and I would add on for LGBTQ individuals, women in general, pretty much anyone. Like, there is quite a lot of really upsetting scenes in the book. Pretty much every trigger warning, like, going is in it. Like, even fatphobia is in here. It's a really tough book to read. At the same time, I do think it's worth it if well for that, and also, again, make sure you already like gory horror. Where to begin? Well, first, the biggest talking point is that J.K. Rowling dies in Manhunt. Yes, the author of Harry Potter. If you've clicked on this video, you're likely aware of the controversy surrounding Rowling over the past number of years. Whether you agree with her views or not, Rowling is known to be a transphobe and seemingly homophobic to boot. I wrote this script probably months ago at this stage, and every time I go to actually record, something else has come out about J.K. Rowling and her affiliations, and how she's willing to align herself with white supremacists over her hate for trans people. I'm not going to get into a big discussion on that front. Better people than me have produced videos and articles detailing all her various dramas. However, for this video, it's just important to note that J.K. Rowling is known for transphobia, and Manhunt is written by and about trans women. Several media outlets reported that Rowling is murdered by trans women in Manhunt, causing a lot of people to be really upset and review bomb Manhunt. A review bomb is when a lot of people negatively or positively review a book or movie without having seen or read it. In this case, a lot of really angry people left one-star reviews as a form of protest, like protesting the author on behalf of J.K. Rowling. And in response, more people positively review bombed to try offset this. Folks, the media lied. Rowling does die in the plague apocalypse that ravages the world of Manhunt. She dies prior to the events of the book, and she is not murdered by trans women. It's actually one of the better aspects of the book, in my opinion. Rowling's accidental death is used as an allegory for how transphobia can negatively impact all people, not just trans people, and how trans people, particularly trans women, are scapegoated for things that have nothing to do with them. Rowling dies in a fire caused by one of her cis friends turning. This is a kind of zombie apocalypse book. One of her cis friends turns due to her high testosterone caused by PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome. You know, that thing that affects a lot of people. I really liked this inclusion, as a lot of cis women or AFAB people can have high testosterone or traditionally male characteristics. Plus, a lot of anti-trans sentiment comes in the guise of protecting cis women from cis men. So in all, this scene does not deserve that controversy. It's also worth mentioning that Rowling is not the only celebrity mentioned in the book. Elton John is also in there, expected to be running around on all fours looking for food. Manhunt is not the only fiction, or even, it's not even the only zombie-ish apocalypse fiction to have celebrity death as a plot point. Off the top of my head, Zombieland has Bill Murray shot to death for pretending to be a zombie, and a dead zombie celebrity, like several celebrities are mentioned by Bill Murray as being dead and wandering around the place as zombies. In both Manhunt and Zombieland, these celebrities' mentions seem to provide some of the same theme. Fame does not protect you from the plague. I mean, this mirrors real life, like famous people got COVID too. Okay, I'm getting a bit off track. Anyway, Manhunt has been accused of being written by a rape fetishist, misogynistic. It was only published because the author of is trans. Like, some of the fake reviews are way even more horrific. Like, it's just this constant barrage of awful shit. And that actually really sucks, because there's plenty of people who've read Manhunt and hated it for the several reasons I've mentioned in my own review. And like, these reviews are drowned out by people who just hate the author. I've seen well-written negative reviews by both trans people and gender critical people who read the book and hate it, and the reviews are almost identical. So I've mentioned this because I strongly disagree with review bombing in general. Even in the case of Rowling's newest self-insert book, The Ink Black Heart, the review bombing is drowning out genuine negative reviews about the editing and formatting. I mean, I'm not sure how to end this section other than to say, if you don't want to support an author of book or think that a book is harmful, don't read or review it. Just don't. Like, I mean, if you want to discuss like the reasons why you don't want to read or review it, like on YouTube or Reddit, you know, more power to you. Like, doing a deep dive on why a book is controversial and why you don't want to read it is completely valid. Like, I'm not saying that. It's just that, like, leaving one-star reviews on like Goodreads, Amazon's, a Storygraph, it is really dishonest and drowns out the voices of people who have read it and have genuine issues and are able to point to areas of a book and be like, yes, this is problematic because of this reason, or this isn't problematic. Like, I felt really bad for people who'd read Manhunt and given it 2 or 1 stars and were like, okay, this is why I don't like it. I don't think, you know, like, I do think it's misogynistic, or I do think there's actually that it's like trips the line into transphobic, which several reviews did say. And on the other side, like, I feel sorry for people who gave it like 5 stars, who'd read it and were like, this spoke to my experience so much. And there's people who are giving it 5 stars being like, 5 stars because I hate J.K. Rowling, or 5 stars because blah turfs. And it's like, okay, but there are people whose voices they're talking about how much this book meant to them, and how there is violence against trans people every day. And, you know, and like awful stuff said to them, and how the allegories were done well, or you know, and anyway, I don't know how to end this kind of section about the controversy, but just don't review bomb. If you don't want to read something you think is problematic, that's fine. I suppose the truth will out. Oh my god, I can't believe I actually managed to record that finally. I just have to stop and just sit down and actually record my thoughts on books. It's because it's not even the recording section that gets me, it's the editing after. Like, I know I'm going to have to edit this, and then I'll also have to edit visual aspect. And I mean, part of me wishes I'd just put a camera and go in front of it and talk like all the other booktubers, but at the same time, I'm kind of anxious about putting my face on camera and also having to do like my makeup, and I don't know. I feel less bad if people found that I know in real life found my channel if it's just my voice. But let me know what you think of Manhunt. I am really interested to see how other people felt about it. Like, I found it really, like, the fact that like I saw reviews from like gender critical people and trans people that felt the same about Manhunt, that I was like, this to me just shows how review bombing is pointless. And also, like, what do you think about like the media's place in this, like particularly to do with Manhunt, but like with other books and media as well, about like how like they straight like the media straight up lied, just was totally incorrect about some portions of Manhunt and falsely created this kind of drama and hatred towards an author, you know, which, as I said, like the parallels, it's, you know, with different authors and how people review bomb both Manhunt and J.K. Rowling's books, and I don't know. What do you think about it? Please leave a comment below, and if you'd like more book reviews and discussions about this, please do subscribe. Let me know in the comments below, and hopefully I will get the next installment of Carmilla reading out next week. Stay tuned.